Jay, how are my finances different if I am in a couple but I'm not married?
Yeah, so I mentioned this stat in another video, but the US Census looked at adults over 55 and found that 32.1% of childless folks were never married. What it doesn't tell you in that stat is, are they in a couple? Are they not married? All that. So I've been tracking this and diving into this data, and I found the number one reason, besides kind of like people want to get married, but beyond that, the number one other reason why people get married is healthcare. Like, actually, so I can put my spouse on my healthcare plan. I swear, if healthcare was ever fixed in the United States, a whole lot of people wouldn't get married, but that's a different discussion. So, okay, you decide to be in a couple but not married. And what happens is when you're married, there's a whole lot of fun stuff the government automatically does. Like it says, well, this person can make decisions for me. This person's going to get my money. This person I can share my tax return with. I can give gifts to. Well, none of that's true if you're in a couple but not married. So here's the thing. You're going to need to figure out some legalese. And in my book, Portrait of Childfree Wealth, there's a story Maggie shares about she was working on her parents' paperwork, living will, power of attorney, and all that. Didn't have it for her spouse. She called him her husband, been married for a long time, and he died at 50. Well, now, to the government, you're nobody. Talk about a nightmare. So you got to make sure you get that paperwork in place. And we have separate videos on the paperwork. But let's go kind of the next step. From a financial planning standpoint, if you're using our system here in Right Capital, I'm going to tell you right now, if you put both your names together, it assumes you're married. So all the software assumes you're married. Not a way I can work around that. The only other way to work around that is to set up two separate financial plans. And this is one of those choices you have to make as a couple. So as a couple, we can either do two separate, like you got yours, I got mine, we're roommates. Or we put them all together, or what's called the hybrid plan, where we have yours, mine, and ours. Well, the yours, mine, and ours is the most confusing, but it works for some people. Like, oh, we buy the house together, but everything else is on our own. Well, if you're going to do any of those combining finances, but you're not married, you got to get paperwork. So for example, buy a house together, you're going to need a partnership agreement for that. The partnership agreement is going to have a whole lot of details about what happens if somebody changes their mind. Classic example of this is, hey, you're child free, and then somebody has a kid. Well, are we still sticking together or not? And can we still live in the house? And wow, that puts a lot of stress on things. So you have to have a legal document. If you're going to be in a long-term relationship, not married, this is where I'm actually going to encourage you to meet with an attorney to write up a partnership agreement and documentation for it. It's one of those few times where I'm like, you're going to have to pay somebody. From a financial standpoint, you're going to have to decide, are we on the same set of goals or different? And it has nothing to do with being married, and it has nothing to do with where your accounts are. So, Katie, I know you're in a couple, but you're married. Is that correct?
I am married.
Cool. Do you do your finances together?
We do.
Does it bring up any strife or any issues? I mean, most couples it does.
Sometimes, but I feel like it's probably more because we are avoidant and just kind of like, yeah, you should buy that. Like we encourage each other, like you should have what you want. And so I think we don't really argue, but we get into trouble with probably overspending and not really knowing where money's going. And so I think it's more an issue of us needing to rein it in than it causing actual arguments.
Yep. So here's where this is going with a couple that's not married. A couple that's not married, you're on your own, and like it can feel like the other person's spending your money. This is one of those things to watch out for. Well, you tell me we need to do this. I don't know. We're buying a house together. Cool. What if we have two different incomes? One person makes 50,000 and one person makes 30. Do they both put the same amount into the house, or do they split it percentage wise? It's a bit of a nightmare. If you're buying a house, if you don't have the partnership agreement and your spouse dies for whatever reason, and I apologize, now what happens is you own a house with their parents. And you might get kicked out. This is where it gets weird. So what happens is in the US, unfortunately, being married makes things easier as a couple. If you're going to be in a couple and not married, there's also tax considerations. So for example, I can gift my wife whatever I want in the tax rolls because we're married. If we weren't married, I'm actually limited to $16,000 a year. Now, by the way, who knows if you're keeping track of that and you spend $50 on groceries and that, no, it doesn't mean that. But it does become an issue when you start buying houses together and supporting each other. It also becomes an issue with retirement planning, things like, oh, hey, one of us is out of a job, the other one's supporting it. You need to be communicating and you need to decide, are we each doing our own plan? Are we doing it together or are we doing the hybrid?